Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is my very first Q&A video where I'm going to answer around 30 of your questions on internships, computer science, learning to code, my personal life, how much money I make, and passive income. I'm probably going to end up doing more of these videos, so if you want your question to be featured, make sure to follow me on Instagram and also leave a bunch of comments down below. Anyway, let's begin. Okay, starting off with all the questions related to careers and internships, Dragon Warrior asks, now that you have really good internship experience, what are your career goals going forward? Yeah, so right now I'm interning at Shopify and I'm going to intern at Amazon this summer. My goal probably in the next few years is to maybe get a full-time job at hopefully a FAANG company or another tech company in that area. I'd definitely be working as like a new grad software engineer, and I'd probably end up doing that for around 2 to 3 years. After that, I'm thinking about maybe getting an MBA potentially and going into consulting for a bit. My big dream is to build up passive income from this channel over the next 4 to 5 years. And at that point, when I can like fully sustain myself, quit my job and found a SaaS startup, probably in the note-taking or productivity industry since I know that area so well. But yeah, I think it would be super cool to try to build a company from the ground up in my mid to late 20s. Drop a comment down below if you've ever been interested in founders, building companies, or startups. All right, Shreth Kapoor asks, apart from data structures and algorithms, did you do anything else like machine learning or development for projects? Honestly, not really. I never really did any major projects in machine learning or really anything else. I mainly focused on getting internship after internship and made sure that each internship was better than the last one in terms of career options. If I ever needed a project, I would mainly use my intern project from those other internships that I worked at, because most internships will have you do some kind of project and then you can usually take that and use it as leverage to get another internship. Okay, T Setso asks, any advice for getting internships as an international student? Honestly, not really. I'm sure it's the same process as getting internships as a US student. Just find the company you want to apply for and apply online using their form. You can probably get a better chance of a response if you find some sort of referral. So if you know anyone who works at the company that you're applying for, you can just ask them to refer you. Also, make your resume really good and just grind LeetCode and you'll probably have a good chance. Parth asks, what are the steps for onboarding for an Amazon software engineering intern? I'm doing Amazon this summer, so I don't know exactly what their onboarding process is going to be like, but based on my past experience with other companies, it's probably going to be watching tutorials or doing some sort of online course to get familiar with their tech stack. And then maybe meeting all the members of my team, my manager, and then also getting used to Amazon's internal tools, whatever they use to do video conferences, messaging, stuff like that. I'll get back to you this summer with an update video as to what the process is actually like. Okay, we have a few questions on FAANG internships. Talha asks, what are the steps for following to get an internship in FAANG between first and second year? Smartest way for a sophomore to get a good internship? Information on remote FAANG internships. Honestly, yeah, it's really simple. All you have to do is just monitor when the big tech companies like FAANG release their internship applications. Every week, you should probably Google Facebook summer internship, software engineering, Amazon summer internship, Google internship. It'll definitely come up on Google if they've opened their application. And yeah, you just apply online. You definitely want to get a referral. That'll drastically increase your chance for a response. If the internship is remote, it'll be listed there. And I think a lot of the FAANG companies have remote options this summer just because of COVID, but I don't know how long they're going to keep that up for. If you're a sophomore or first year, I'm going to be honest, you probably don't have that great of a chance. But if you do have a prior internship with another company, maybe some good projects on your resume and some really good LeetCode experience, you could shoot your shot and potentially make it in. So yeah, the process is fairly consistent. Just apply online, get a referral, grind LeetCode, make sure your resume is really finely tuned and you have really good projects. And then hopefully you'll get that very first coding interview and then you can let your coding interview skills shine. Okay, Champ Kapil Chetri asks, 3 career suggestions from your experience to computer science student. Okay, 3 suggestions. I'd probably say my first one is to actually put yourself out there and try. I know a lot of people who go to my university who are definitely better than me at computer science. I had classes with them and they were just whizzes at coding, but none of them actually applied to internships early. Like they definitely could have made it in, but they just procrastinated applying or didn't think they were good enough to even apply. As they say, you miss all the shots you don't take, and everyone should be putting themselves out there and applying to as many internships as possible. Second suggestion, I'd say grades matter, but they don't really. Let me explain. Basically, your computer science classes are going to be pretty difficult. There's no way around that. And in your freshman year, especially if you come into college getting all A's in high school, you might be kind of shocked. Because you're a computer science major, just focus primarily on learning as much as possible, and as long as you get maybe like a B in most classes, you're probably going to be fine. Tech companies don't really care about your GPA as long as it's above like a 3.0. So focus on learning as much as possible and getting good at coding interviews. Hopefully that'll be enough to get your first internship and then build from there. Third suggestion, actually make friends in your computer science classes. Honestly, I would have died in my algorithms class if I didn't have a strong group of friends who we'd meet every single week and work on the homework together. I'm going to be honest, without my algos boys, I definitely would not have done well in that class. It's super helpful to have friends around you who are doing the same thing as you, so you can grind through problems together and learn from them. We would meet every single week, probably on Monday, because that's when the homework was due. And during that time, we would often talk about other topics as well. So it's a really great way to get close to people who are in the major. Okay, speaking of my algos friends, my friend Ben asks me, what is your opinion of FAANG companies when it comes to ethics and building a career in the decentralized future of the internet? I just got done listening to Lex Friedman's interview with Mark Zuckerberg, and I have a lot of thoughts, especially as someone who wants to work for Facebook or Google in the future. When it comes to unethical practices, it's definitely highly subjective. Like, something that is really unethical to someone is perfectly fine to someone else. And our country is so polarized that often half the country thinks something is amazing and the other half hates it. Every time Facebook blocks someone or Twitter removes someone's account, one half will cheer and the other half will cry censorship. I really think if you listen to the crowd screaming, you'll go insane. So honestly, you just have to follow your gut and do what you think is right. Personally, and I know this is controversial, I don't really see anything wrong with the majority of what the FAANG companies are doing. Yeah, they are big tech companies and they have a monopoly for sure, but honestly, working for them is just too good of an opportunity to pass up, and I think I would learn so much. And as a CS major, working for FAANG puts you in a position to basically do whatever you want afterwards. So yeah, I'm gonna sell out to the FAANG companies. If you think what you're doing is right, but some people think it's unethical, I don't think that's grounds to not follow your instincts, especially because nowadays everything is unethical to someone. My friend Vinay asks, did you consider anything other than CS for a career? Well, it's kind of a funny story of how I actually got into CS. When I was a freshman in high school, I was signed up for orchestra, and my school had just announced and created their very first computer science class ever. So one of my family friends, someone who worked at John Deere, recommended that I drop orchestra and take that CS class. So I listened to him and I absolutely loved it. I had so much fun learning the fundamentals of CS. We did stuff in Scratch, in Android app maker, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And every year after that, I just took the next CS class until it was my senior year, and I decided just to do CS in college. But if I didn't do CS, there were so many other careers that I considered doing. Most notably, I thought about doing pre-med and becoming a doctor. Both my parents are doctors, so they definitely would have been happy if I went into medicine. And a lot of my friends' parents and the people in my community were doctors. Honestly, I just wasn't interested in biology or chemistry. Those subjects just were much less engaging to me than CS and math. So I just naturally gravitated towards computer science, math, physics, rather than the biochem area. I also considered law after watching the show Daredevil, until I called my cousin Hamza, who's like a big corporate lawyer, and he convinced me that law school just probably wasn't for me. Apparently corporate law isn't that great for your mental health, so yeah, he did talk me out of it. I also considered doing politics after reading Barack Obama's book, but just opening CNN and Fox News and realizing that if you go into politics, you're going to be hated by 50% of people at all times convinced me to not go for it. Alessandro asks, what happens to software engineers as they get older? Okay, so this might also be a little bit controversial, but I've noticed that a lot of the time software engineers who stay at their same company for like a decade, stay in the same role, they often will kind of get complacent and not really grow and change as they get older. If you want to be a software engineer, I do think it's important to constantly be either moving up in your field as different levels, or move into management at some point, or switch around companies or learn different tech stacks. I think that there is a tendency to become complacent over time, which is something I'm definitely trying not to do, because it can cause problems later on if companies start to do some downsizing or reshuffling. And if you're found out that you don't really know what you're doing and you just showed up at the company 20 years ago and you've been stuck at the same spot, you might end up getting fired, which is something that no one wants to happen to them. So yeah, what would I do to stop that? I definitely would make sure that I'm constantly checking my value to the company, and also hopefully ascending the hierarchy or jumping around to different departments. Okay, so next up is questions on learning in university. Nick's Tips asks, where am I studying? Why did I choose this specific university over others? Nishant also asks, in which university am I studying and what course am I doing? Salar asks, why did I choose Wisconsin? So I'm just gonna answer all these questions together. And yeah, as Salar said, I go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I chose it because it was pretty close to home. It's only like a 2 to 3 hour drive, and it had a really good computer science program. I also love the campus. Madison is a beautiful city, and when I visited, I just knew that I would do well here. Do I have any regrets? undergrads? Well, I also got into USC, so USC was another big choice of mine. And I remember, this is kind of an embarrassing story, but as the plane was landing when I was visiting USC in LA, one of my ears wouldn't pop or like equalize. So I had like one ear, which is one pressure, and the other ear, which is another pressure, which caused some of the worst pain I've ever felt in my entire life. And honestly, that kind of deterred me from USC. I know what you're thinking, Aman, why the hell would you not go to a college based on one experience and one flight? But that's how our experiences work. That pain that lasted for several days through the entire visit tainted my entire visit to USC. I also got anxious and worried about going so far away from home and having to fly back home. So that was another reason why I didn't choose USC. Though honestly, if I were to go back and do it again, I probably would have discounted both of those things and evaluated the university solely based on how much I liked it versus worrying about the distance. So if you're a senior right now, I would highly recommend not worrying about the distance as much and focusing mainly on the school. Because as you get older, you're going to become more independent and you're probably not going to come home that much anyway. Alessandro asks, does college size or ranking impact your job/internship search? So I think he's asking about whether the college you go to impacts what kind of job or internships you're able to get. And the CS major community generally has a consensus on this. So there's basically two tiers of university. There's the Harvard and the MIT and the Stanford and the Caltech and the Princeton and all those super high name brand universities. And if you go to one of those, yeah, you're going to get the first interview. No recruiter wants to be the guy who rejected the Harvard applicant. But after you get that first interview, the process is exactly the same as everyone else. If you don't go to a big name university like Harvard or MIT, don't worry, you still have a really good shot at making it into these companies. Luckily, the coding interview is the most important part, and whether you go to Harvard or Stanford or Princeton or Wisconsin or your community college, what you know is what counts when it comes to the interview. If you can't do the problem, it doesn't matter what college you go to, you're not going to get the job. So yeah, don't worry too much about the college you go to and focus on learning the content because that's the most important part. Nicholas also asks, which is the best way to learn programming? Nishant asks, best ways to learn computer science by yourself, how much time it takes to learn data structures and algorithms. Yeah, these are all questions about learning computer science. Okay, so if I was starting over with computer science, here's what I would do to learn it from the ground up. I would probably find some Java course on Udemy and just watch as many videos of that as possible to try to teach myself the fundamentals of Java, how the language actually works. I might also work through a Java textbook and just try to get the nuances and syntax of the language. Once you have a decent grasp of programming in Java, I would jump straight to coding interview questions. I'd literally go to LeetCode.com and just start working down the easy section, starting with two-sum. That way you get introduced to problem solving and you're actually able to solve coding questions. After you start working through some basic LeetCode easies, I would open up Cracking the Coding Interview and read that book. That'll teach you all of the data structures and the basic algorithms you need to pass coding interviews. Now, this is assuming that you want to learn computer science for software engineering jobs. If you want to learn computer science for other things like building personal projects, I would recommend starting at the same step, learning Java or Python or JavaScript, any base level language, and then just thinking of an idea and trying to build it. So let's say you're a big gamer, you want to build some kind of game. Just think of a really simple game and try to build it from the ground up by watching YouTube tutorials, reading through forums, just basic stuff like that. Like one game you could make in JavaScript, HTML, CSS is just like a button clicker game. So just have like a basic button, have like a counter, and just a number of times you can click the button, that's your score. It's a really simple game and it's not that fun, but it'll teach you the fundamentals of actually creating something from the ground up. So yeah, if you're doing software engineering stuff, start with the base language and then expand to data structures using Cracking the Code Interview and do LeetCode. If you're trying to learn CS just for your personal interest, start again with that base language, but then go to personal projects or games or anything else you're interested in. Honestly, in my opinion, it is pretty difficult to learn computer science on your own because you have no accountability. Computer science is not easy to just learn from the ground up. It definitely takes a lot of time and intensive studying. And if you have no accountability, you're just going on, I don't know, websites and just watching videos, it's difficult to do that consistently over a long-term period. This is why people do the computer science major. Yes, like all of that stuff is online for free, but without grades, without professors, without classmates, it's really difficult to do that. So if you're really serious about computer science, I would recommend doing it at university or at least doing a boot camp. That way you have a community, friends doing the same thing, and you have that forceful accountability to make sure you actually get it done. How to be ready or even start your software development career before entering the university. Okay, so if you're someone who's in high school, here's what I recommend recommend you do. It's kind of similar to the other stuff I answered. Basically, make sure you have a strong foundation in one language, could be Java, Python, JavaScript. Do that by watching online tutorials or reading through a textbook, and then dive straight into LeetCode. The earlier you can get that data structures, algorithms, LeetCode experience, the better, provided you want to do a software engineering job. I'd also recommend building up your resume by trying to do some kind of personal projects in high school, or if you can't, and this would be the best, finding some kind of volunteer internship. I'm sure you can work on like building some websites for a nonprofit. That'll give you some good experience working for someone and allow you to actually put something on your blank resume. Shabir asks, all devices are required for a computer science student. I'm planning on making a video on this in the future, but off the top of my head, I'd say the laptop is the most important one. As a CS major, you can't really get away with like a phone or an iPad. You do need some kind of laptop. I love MacBooks. I think MacBooks are way better than Windows computers. For me, I found that I'm way more productive on Mac OS than Windows, for sure, especially because I have like all other Apple devices, so I'm plugged into the Apple ecosystem. But really, if you're a Windows lover, you can also use a Windows laptop. Other than that, you're probably good. Computer science is mainly just done on your computer, and you can take all of your notes on the computer as well. Deadkiller20 asks, which one is your favorite programming language? Which programming language? So I'm pretty familiar with Java, Python, C. I have to say Java. I've done several years of Java, worked on it in a lot of different contexts. And just because I have the most experience with it, I would feel most comfortable using Java for anything that I did. I also think Python is pretty cool just because it's so simple to read and write, and you can do a lot of different things without putting much effort into it. But yeah, I'd have to say Java is my top language. Now we get to the section on money, life advice, relationships, and goals. More of a miscellaneous section rather than focusing on any specific topic. Dragon Warrior asks, what do you tell yourself when things get hard when practicing DSA, which is data structures and algorithms? What do I tell myself when things get hard? I think the biggest thing that motivates me to keep going is the idea that the difficulty is the goal. After listening to a bunch of Andrew Huberman podcasts on focus, neuroplasticity, learning, it's kind of been ingrained into me that if something is easy and you're just operating without any difficulty, you're probably not growing or learning. The maximum level of learning comes when you approach a difficult problem and you don't really know how to do it, and it takes a lot of difficult focus and effort to solve it. And that frustration and challenge you feel is the new neural connections being made. You will literally have adrenaline and cortisol being released in your brain, and that combined with the dopamine released when you're successful at the problem actually will imprint new neural connections. Nowadays, I've internalized that message so much that whenever I find something that's super difficult and I finally figured it out, I feel really happy because I know that I learned something new, and the more difficulty I experience, the more I'll grow. I've actually started to crave that challenging frustration when approaching problems, which motivates me to keep on striving to grow. Danks asks, how much do you make at Shopify? Well, I'll tell you, Danks. At Shopify, I make around $47 an hour, which is really good for an internship. It's slightly less than Amazon, but it's still really good. They also have a bunch of intern perks or benefits, like a work from home stipend of $500, a $250 stipend called Sportify to put towards anything sports or athletic or health related. And there are a few more benefits on internet and some other stuff like that. So yeah, pretty good experience. I'm well compensated and I love it so far. Mahesh the Dev asks, and this is kind of related, how are you able to afford all the things you have, like a nice apartment, a great desk setup, and delivered food each week? I recently saw your video of day in the life. Man, you are living the super organized and well-structured life, whether it's your food or health or beauty products. And I want you to create a monthly expense video as a student/intern. Yeah, I'm definitely working on creating a what I spend in a week video, so look up for that in the future. But honestly, Mahesh, the truth is that I don't pay for everything myself. I'm super privileged in the fact that my parents support like the base expenses such as rent and food, along with health insurance, car insurance, those massive expenses that are essentials. And because of that, all of the money I earn from Shopify and other internships is just pure profit. I don't have to worry about things like food or just surviving, which ends up being the majority of what people spend their money on anyway when they're on their own. That's why I'm able to spend money on tech, desk setups, camera gear, stuff like that. I do think I still am overspending a bit. I probably should learn how to cut back, make a budget, and probably save at least half my money, especially because I don't have very many base expenses to spend on. Lone Sap asks, what are your different passive income streams? Don't have too many yet. I'm definitely working on building those up with this YouTube channel specifically, but I have two passive income streams right now. This channel or AdSense, which is not much at all. It's only like $200-300 a month. And then I also have a Skillshare class that I made a long time ago about the language C#, and that makes me like only $50 to $100 per month. So yeah, most of my income is active right now with my Shopify full-time internship, but hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, I'll have a lot more passive income through YouTube and Skillshare. there. Oh, I also have investments in like the S&P 500 and index funds like that. I don't really see that as passive income, but yeah, I definitely have those. Arshmanhauser asks, how are your videos edited so well? Honestly, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? Ophelia Sin asks me, why did you start your YouTube channel and who are your favorite YouTubers? Well, I originally started my channel, and I'm gonna be honest here, because I watched Ali Abdal's How Much Money I Make in a Week in May of 2020. And that kind of opened my eyes to the earning potential that YouTube can offer in the long term. And after watching that video, which made me take YouTube seriously, I decided to post my first videos. Yeah, that was the original reason that I got started, but the reason I keep going now is because it's just a lot of fun. I love the process of listening to podcasts, reading books, watching other people's videos, taking those ideas, writing scripts, and then making my own videos. It's also super fulfilling to create content and have this packaged thing that you put so much time and effort into it and then putting it out into the world. I feel like a lot of the things we do in our lives don't actually have any feedback that comes back immediately. When you're in high school or in college, yeah, you do take tests and get good grades, but you're not really creating anything. You're not packaging anything together and putting it out there. Whereas with YouTube, every single video I make, I hit post and I get to see all the comments, all the likes, all the feedback, and I know that so many people have watched what I created. And I just love that process, which is why I keep going. Who are my favorite YouTubers? Well, I'd say number one is definitely myself, of course. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. But my number one YouTuber, I'm sure you guys know, is Ali Abdal. Like I said, his videos motivated me to get started, and his YouTube ideas and process are what taught me the foundation of how to make it on this platform. Other than Ali, I'd say some other favorite YouTubers of mine are Good Mythical Morning. I've been watching them since I was in 7th grade. Colin and Samir are also great nowadays. Their videos are so good and they're finally getting the traction they deserve. I also love Captain Sinbad, Better Ideas, Matt Diavella. These kind of productivity YouTubers are also great. Cody Ko, Kelly Wicasa, Steezy Kane, those guys are also hilarious. So yeah, I like a lot of different creators and they all inspire me in different ways. Ram Gopal Vadula asks, talk about girlfriend influence in college. I think this is one of my friend's dads, but yeah, no, I'll answer your question. Yeah, no, it's been good. She definitely motivates me to improve myself and is super supportive of everything I'm doing. She also has a YouTube channel, so it's in the description if you guys want to check it out. My girlfriend asks, how to get a girlfriend as a CS major. Probably gonna make a video about that in the future, so if you guys are interested in dating, relationships, how to put yourself out there, let me know. But anyway, Gautam Gupta asks me, what do you do if someone becomes overconfident or thinks you've done enough? Also, how do you deal with people trying to pull you down, being jealous, or teasing you for studying too much? I think there's this perception that I do a lot of work, I'm super productive, and I study a lot. And if you're someone who knows me IRL, you know that's definitely not true. I don't think I study more or work harder than the average CS major. I just think that I usually focus on the things that I like doing and find meaningful, which is why I naturally have motivation to do them. How do I deal with people trying to pull me down? Honestly, a lot of the times people are afraid about putting themselves out there on YouTube or social media because they're like, oh, what will my friends and family say? They're gonna hate me. They're gonna shit on me all the time. But in my experience, as someone who's been doing this for a year and a half now, I've literally only had a handful of people, and honestly, I can't even think of many people at all who would make fun of me or try to get me not to do this. And most of them would never do it to my face. Maybe there are people who talk about it behind my back, but honestly, who cares? Like, I love doing this, and why would I stop doing it just because a few people from my community, my hometown, would talk about it negatively? I think it's also the fact that no one really cares about me at all. I mean, yeah, when I posted my very first video ever, there were a lot of people who slid up on Instagram and were like, oh my God, you started a YouTube channel. That's so cool. And after the second, third, and fourth video, people still did watch and tell me about it. But at this point, I'm on video number 32, 34, and after 30 something videos, people just stop caring. I get almost no views from my community off of Instagram. Most of my views are off of YouTube, which is you guys, and are mainly people who found me off the platform and don't know me in person. So yeah, people just don't care about you. Maybe they'll say something after the first or second video, but everyone's concerned about their own lives and they'll quickly forget that you can have a YouTube channel. Facundo asks, in average, how many hours a week do you study for CS? Let me tell you, this is another thing that I don't like the framing of. People are obsessed with how much net time that someone studies per week or per day. I feel like hours studied is a really bad metric to assess productivity because some people are way more efficient than others. There are people who sit down to study for 3-4 hours, but they actually only get maybe 30 or 40 minutes of work because they're on YouTube, Instagram, their phone the whole time. Whereas I know people like my younger brother who sits down once a week to study for just a few hours for a certain class, and he's so productive that that's all he has to do. So yeah, honestly, on average, I probably only work for maybe 5 to 6 hours per day maximum. The rest is spent scrolling email, social media, and meetings. It's really hard for me to do more than just 5 hours of deep work. I recommend people focus more on increasing the intensity of focus rather than trying to beat themselves into studying for long hours. Kiefer asks how to improve mental health and well-being. I say my best mental health tips are: number one, get enough sleep. I know so many people who sleep 5 to 6 hours and think they're okay, but they're definitely not. The best tip for sleep that I have is to create a hard sleep time. I have an alarm that goes off at 9 p.m. every single night, which notifies me to stop doing whatever I'm doing, follow the 9 o'clock rule, and get ready for bed. That way, all I do is either talk to my girlfriend or relax or listen to an audiobook, and then I go to sleep. I'm never working past 9 p.m. if it can be avoided. And because of that, I'm always able to wake up at 6 or 6:30 in the morning and be really well rested and ready for the next day. Other than sleep, I'd say exercise and diet are also really important. I try to work out every single day for at least 30 to 40 minutes, whether it's lifting or running. And that definitely grounds me and makes sure that I'm in a good mood for the rest of the day. Leisure activities are also really important. I love reading, writing, listening to audiobooks. So there's not much time where I'm just sitting there with the feeling of isolation and loneliness and nothing to do. Saji asks, how is your fitness journey going? It's going pretty well. I started with a personal trainer. I have a running coach now, and both of them are keeping me pretty accountable. The diet has been the hardest part with the personal trainer. He pushes me to work really hard in the gym, so my workouts have been good. But yeah, diet is still a work in progress, and I'm sure it's always going to be like that. Woman asks, should I start making YouTube videos? Definitely yes. I think every single person should create content in some way, shape, or form. And if you watch YouTube, you should probably focus on YouTube because you know that space really well. Anyway, those are 30 questions that people have asked me on YouTube and Instagram. If you're interested in learning more about what I do every day, you can watch this video right here, which is a day in the life working for Shopify. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. A like would be incredible, and I will see you in the next video.